Walter Cronkite once said, "In seeking the truth, you have to get both sides of the story." Coming to you live from the impact area of information and the destination of deliberate discussion. Welcome to Depth of Perspective, where the truth has no bias. With your host, Alex Kirsch. Information is our weapon, and we aim it on the azimuth of fire towards a better future for our country. Prepare yourselves for the arrival.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Depth of Perspective here in association with 365 Broadcasting. We are streaming from YouTube, so if you have this app, feel free to listen in on the 365 Broadcasting page. If you haven't done so, please do us a solid and hit like and hit share and hit that follow button or subscribe button. Be sure to also get over to get our notifications and hit that bell. For every time we go live, you'll be notified. Bring your friends and family to tune in. Help us do our part in fighting back against misinformation and all forms of censorship that threatens our way of life and impedes our path to greatness. Our network aspires to tell the truth, and the time is now to fight back against all forms of tyranny in the hopes of a better tomorrow. So sit back with your beverage of choice and enjoy the show. Feel free to comment and give your points of view. And if I don't answer your question or engage your comment right now, I'll be sure to do so later. We're always on the lookout for new talent, whether it be conservative, moderate, or liberal. Or hey, you don't even need to be political. You're just someone who likes to do podcasting on your spare time. If you know someone who wishes to contribute, send them on over to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/365 Broadcasting. Send us a message. We'd be glad to have you. Thank you again for contributing. And what's going on, everybody? Hopefully everyone's enjoying their great Tuesday evening. So tonight, we have a real badass on the line. To say it's an honor to have him on this show is a drastic understatement. He retired from the United States Navy after 24 years of active duty service as a senior chief. The bulk of his service was as one of the elite of the U.S. military, the United States Navy SEALs. When he isn't duck hunting and working real estate, or running his website, www.video.extremesealexperience.com, he is doing what he does best, hunting phony Navy SEALs, people who are not satisfied with their service, so they steal the valor of something so few are able to do. To be a Navy SEAL requires the greatest dedication and sheer will, and there are people out there who will steal that valor. Valor thieves beware, especially if you claim to be a Navy SEAL, because he will find you. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Don Shipley. Let's give him a warm welcome and thank him for his service. How you doing tonight, Don?
Well, hello, YouTube. I've been kicked off of there for quite a while after that Nathan Phillips thing. I started another channel, former Buds 131, and hopefully they won't catch up to me. But, yeah, I've always been a big fan of YouTube and glad to help out, man.
Well, we're definitely glad to have you, especially on 365 Broadcasting. I do remember when YouTube made a big old stink about the whole, Nathan Phillips thing. I mean, I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it was kind of a big deal. But I've already kind of given everybody a broad overview about what your experience is. Is there anything else you want to expound upon?
No, I grew up on a big farm in Pennsylvania, and my dad was a fighter pilot. My whole family, my grandmother had a book that traced us back to the Revolutionary War, through the Civil, and through everything, and all my uncles, my grandfather, everyone. And my brother was a Marine. My other brother was an Army Ranger, but my dad was a fighter pilot in the Air Force. And I used to stand alerts with him while he was in the National Guard in Pittsburgh, and a big farm we had out there, a big beef cattle farm. And he became a commercial airline captain and transferred to Baltimore, Washington International Airport. And we grew up on a nice place on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, which is right back where I'm at. But if he had never sold that farm, I'd have never spent a single day in the Navy. I'd have still been there. I'd loved every bit of it, all the cattle and the hunting and trapping. So I joined the Navy about 15 miles from where I'm sitting right now all those years ago. So I've come home to the Eastern Shore, man.
So why the Navy? I mean, what appealed you to the Navy? And most of all, what appealed you to doing the Navy SEALs?
It's a funny story, man. My dad, I was the oldest son, and a lot of people out there know what that's like. My dad had swag. My dad was an extraordinarily handsome man, and he had that fighter pilot swag, and we clashed. We clashed, and one day, I don't know, I was sitting there watching the Brady Bunch and a crappy report card and Partridge Family or whatever it was, and here he comes, and it was going in one ear and right out the other. But the commercial came on TV. It's still available on YouTube, and it started at the sun rising, and it said dawn launch, Sea of Japan, flight deck of the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise, and it showed this jet just screaming off there into the sunrise. And join the Navy, you can be part of this and more. And I told my dad, I said, I got something to do. And I went up. I was 17. I was a punk. I wasn't a bad kid, but I just had, probably call it ADHD now. But there was a big world out there I wanted to see, and I didn't do well in school from any of that. I just knew there was a huge world out there that I wanted to see. I took all the tests. I did everything on my own. I came back. I sat my parents down at the table, and I said, I'm joining the Navy. And my dad, he about fell out of his chair. And he said, they'll never take you. And I said, sign here. I leave in 3 days. And I never looked back, and love him to, I lost him 2 years ago. Unfortunately, what a gift to this world he was. But he understood, and he got it, and I never looked back. I was a high school dropout. I would never recommend that to anybody. But if you're spinning a lot of people ask me about college and becoming a SEAL. Should I go to college before I become a SEAL? And, all this stuff. And really, if you're just spinning your wheels in the mud and you're not going anywhere, the military is just a great option for you. I have nothing bad to say about the military, and had a great time. So, it hooked me up, my family up, my kids up, everything.
Yeah, but when I was in high school, I didn't really have much of anything. I mean, I had a great family too, but just I had no real guidance and no real purpose. I felt like I was a pansy. Let's put it that way. I'll call a spade a spade. I was a kid that was too scared to stand up for himself, and so I needed something. I was going to go in the Air Force, but the Air Force recruiting wouldn't tell me anything. So I ended up joining the Army, and then became an artilleryman, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I love the Army. I have respect for all branches, but the trash talking is always going to come into play. But I love being in the Army. I love my country, and I love the service I've been doing. And I've just passed my 18-year mark, so I'm definitely on the downstretch. So, but it's a great.
Congratulations, man! You can do those last 2 years standing on your head, and every month a check's going to come in your mailbox for thanking you for your service. And it's not a bad way to go, man. When you network with other people, it's a cool thing about the military. I think a lot of people understand. When you join the Navy and you're interested in electronics, or you're interested in anything, or the Army, there's a place for you, and you find that place, and you're around these like-minded guys and gals that are into electronics, into weapons, into just all those traits that they have, and you network from there.
Absolutely.
And it works out, man.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty as to why I invited you on the show. So you started, when did you start Phony Navy SEAL of the Week? When did you start all that?
Oh, that was some clown in North Carolina. I really dislike two types of phonies immensely. One is the religious phony, the one that's going to wear that crucifix around his neck, and he goes to church every week, and he tells all these terrible lies, and, he's a godly man, he's a holy man, he would never lie, and the hell he won't. And they're terrible. They hide behind that religion thing, telling them they're a SEAL in the congregation, and just all that. I just really dislike them. The other one is, if SEAL training isn't hard enough already, there's a number of clowns out there that will freely give training advice to a young guy that aspires to be a SEAL because they believe you to be one. And if the horror stories of you cutting throats in Vietnam and raping women and all that isn't enough to shine them off. They will go. I have heard so many of these grotesque stories that never, ever happened that will take a good guy that would make a great SEAL, and he looks for something else to do because, the whole SEAL thing, you guys are really bad news. But the ones that give that training advice that never had the courage to go there themselves, and that was a guy I got down in North Carolina. And when I outed him for that kid, he threatened to have me killed by his uncle in the Gambino crime family. And it really upset me, man. I got so mad at that dude, and I started Phony SEAL. I got all his pictures and everything else, and I just put up a video. I don't know where I come up with it, but it was Phony Navy SEAL of the Week. And it's still up there. I'm in some kind of pink shirt, and, I went after him really bad. And the next thing I know, the verifications and requests and things like that are coming out of the woodwork. I had really no idea what I was about to get involved in when I did that first video. But, I'm in for a penny, in for a pound, man. There's no backing out of this thing now.
So how many Phony SEALs have you busted since you started?
Thousands. Now, when you're talking about busting, like you had sent me a request to verify a guy today, and I did him, I would and verified him as being a phony Vietnam vet SEAL. I would put that check mark in that box too. Thousands and thousands. I have no idea. It's got to be approaching 10,000 at least.
10,000.
When you talk about, oh my gosh, dude, I do dozens of these a day. I often tell people when SEALs make another exploit of killing bin Laden or Somali pirates, or even when the SEALs get in trouble or doing something, the verifications are just so overwhelming from YouTube, Facebook, all my email outlets and stuff. I can't even hardly get through it. But Phony SEAL videos, I've done a couple hundred of them. I think I'm up well over 200, close to 3.
Yeah. While this stream is going, I'm actually going to be sharing some of my photos from my military service, like from my deployments, and I'm also going to be sharing some pictures with Dumpster permission, of course, from his experiences. So one of the things that I've actually noticed is that the most consistent thing that I've noticed when it came down to whenever you would talk to him, the first question you would ask him is, "Were you a Navy SEAL?" Then you would ask him, "What was your BUDS class number?" And then, "What was your month and year that you graduated?" Now, why is it you usually stick with those questions right there?
Okay, well, let's step back just a bit, and you bring that up to me because I'm old and old commando, and I get forgetful. Mm-hmm. But this started, my gosh, this Phony SEALs went back to my days, and just being in the Navy. But there were a group of guys out there well before me that ran Authentic SEAL, and they just did nothing but verify these fake SEAL claims. Vera SEAL, and I got hooked up with one of them, a very gifted guy, Steve Robinson, who mentored me into taking over this position. Because when as an example, I verified an obituary today, and I just can't stand these obituaries. And the woman wanted to make a plaque for this guy, and she wanted his class number, and I had to tell her he was never a Navy SEAL. So you've got to be very delicate when you deal with family members and the kids that want SEAL pallbearers for their father. It gets really gummed up, and I guess I was a good fit for him. So he mentored me into having a temperament and being able to write well and things like that. And I did that for so long, for so many people, and it just becomes overwhelming. The burnout rate for hearing these insane stories of bravado and heroics and parachuting into North Korea, and it's just and nuts.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm the first guy, and I'll kind of take credit for that, out of all the guys before me that took it to the internet. I'm the guy that did the Phony SEAL, and then the media followed, and I just kept doing that. And then that wasn't good enough. Phony Navy SEAL of the week. And the next thing to come up was, okay, let's get them on the phone and hear what their story is. And some of my earlier things, you build into this, but I can see it right now. Anybody can ask me the name of the SEAL and I'll verify it. So let's call them on the phone. And that's becomes sketchy as well. You've got to lead into something, and a lot of them really like talking about it. Now, because I have done so much of that, I'm so widely known that usually when I say my name, they all know me. But it's kind of too late. So I lead them in a BUDS class, team assignments, Vietnam service. I'm looking at all of it. I mean, you can't lie to me while I've got the encyclopedia of SEAL history opened up. And that's where that led to. And that led to personal, what was I going to do now? Personal encounters. So my wife and I began traveling to unravel them on camera. Oregon, Michigan, Maryland, North, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas. We traveled everywhere, and I'm getting ready to make another road trip. It's been too long since I made one to get these guys and confront them on camera. And whether it's a Phony SEAL of the Week video or I'm getting them on the phone, honestly, it's really not about them. It is about their story, how common all these claims are. That they all make, and people see that. This is how well I've done without even trying to do that. When you're listening to these stories, you go, you know what? My neighbor used to say the same thing about his records being classified and his SEAL Black Ops days in Cambodia and all that, and it resonates. And then when you get a phony SEAL, you get a phony Marine, you get a phony Army guy. It's like It just branches out, and the world's a better place without these guys. But they all make the same BS claims. That's it. So I've done well with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like the one thing I've noticed is that like they'll always say something like, "Oh, well, my records are sealed. It's all classified," and things like that. I mean, I see those. They make that same claim every single time. It's like, no. BUDS is a completely unclassified SEAL. It goes onto your DD-214. There's nothing classified about that, but they always stick to that, and it's just, it's amazing, like the stories they concoct. But one story in particular that just really just kind of irked me, and for those that aren't aware, is this like there was a guy that Don here outed, and this guy is actually now, I think you said he was in the asylum, or he's in prison or something like that. But his name is James Hoskins. But he stole the identity of a Navy SEAL and who was killed in a parachuting accident. And he stole...
the Pumpkinhead guy.
Yeah, Pumpkinhead, yeah, exactly. But he stole the class picture and the identity of that man. I think his name was Brett Shadle, and may he rest in peace. And, this guy swore up and down that was him up and down. And you said, no, you stole that picture. And he's like, oh, no, I didn't. I didn't steal that picture. Just, That's
really... the one where I called Marcus Luttrell, because me and Marcus are big buddies. He told me Marcus sucked in the pool. He panicked a lot, that he put him through the pool comp, and I called Marcus and got him on the phone with him.
Yeah, Marcus is like, the only thing I was good at was being in the water. It's like, oh, no, you definitely panicked. You definitely panicked. Don't you remember that? He's like, no, I don't. Yeah. I didn't panic. Oh, God. Just...
he profited a lot from it, and we get those guys that, they're strange guys to begin with. And I just got a verification before we came on here of a guy that wanted me to verify a SEAL, that a 70-year-old guy that told him that he hurt his back jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. And okay, if you really, I put the clamps to your stupidity sometimes when you contact me with these ridiculous things. I kind of lit into that guy.
Oh yeah, of course.
Really, are you really asking me to take time out of my busy day to verify this, that the guy hurt his back jumping out of a plane without a parachute? Are you stupid or something? My best one, I thought I'd heard them all. But this guy, somebody asked me to verify this guy, and I went after him really bad. But he had claimed he was shot out of a gun on a ship across North Korean lines, like some guy, some clown in a circus. And the guy had believed it, I mean, the stranger the story, the easier it is to believe. That's the first thing you got to learn about being a sucker, of how good this deal is, or the stranger the story. So when this guy said that the U.S. Navy fired him off the deck of a destroyer across North Korean lines out of a cannon, I mean, people tend to go, wow, how would he make that up? And, but I don't know.
If I ever heard anybody tell me a story like that again, it's like, I want you to do it again. I want to see this. And just to see, like, how they would, what kind of story they can come up with. Because, like, honestly, I'm a firm believer in, I love seeing people doing stupid things. Like, I want to see more people eating Tide Pods, because I just think it's just like, that's just thinning the herd right there. So if you're going to make a claim like that, it's like, you know what? I would love to see that. I want you to go do that right now.
Yeah, I think we all ought to. That's the biggest thing a lot of people say is, I'd like to see him be parachuting into Afghanistan right now. And I agree. I would like to drop you guys out of a plane into the middle of Afghanistan with a ration in your pocket and a compass, and see what happens to you, tough guy. So,
I don't want to jump out of an airplane, for crying out loud. I mean, I'm down here at Fort Benning, and I'm not even thinking about going to airborne school. I already got a bad back and bad knees and everything like that, so I really don't want to keep adding to that. So I'm okay with not jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, or rappelling down a helicopter, or something, however you want to put that. So you actually sent me an article earlier, okay? Now, for those that are unaware, I'm pretty sure everybody saw a video of this elderly woman who was a Vietnam veteran that was a nurse in the Army, and everybody saw pictures of her at the airport challenging a TSA agent to a push-up contest. Now, Don Shipley sent me an article. Now, Don, can you expound on that article real quick? And I'm going to post it actually on this YouTube chat.
The first thing I'm going to say is there was a fire at the Record Center in St. Louis in 1973 that destroyed a lot of Army and Air Force records. It didn't touch any Navy. It didn't touch any Marine Corps. But a lot of people and a lot of phony SEALs claim my records were destroyed in that fire. But if you if you Google St. Louis Fire Records Center, you will see that they have those records that were lost in alphabetical order of who was lost. And I just recently did this with a guy that was claiming service during the Korean War, and his name was mere letters off of what was lost, and I was able to get his records. And so they're very accurate in what they lost, but there's no records of her. And she was out in 2014 as being a fake, and I love the honor flight. That's where this all came from, was the honor flights. And they take all these veterans and they fly them to the wall in D.C., the Vietnam veterans thing, and her claims of having a Silver Star, which never happened in Vietnam, and rappelling out of helicopters as a nurse to treat wounded guys. That never happened. And she'd already been outed once, and here she comes again. So with that was... I'm still twisted up in the story, but I was asked to verify the Coast Guard Master Chief that was taking her place as a speaker. And I got his records immediately today because he was claiming to be an Afghanistan vet. And he was in the Coast Guard. He was completely legit, a Master Chief there. But it all falls under this collateral damage thing of, and that's the terrible thing about what I do or what I've started. You start questioning everyone. And I live in a world of, I wouldn't call it paranoia, but I don't believe a doggone thing anybody tells me until I can prove it. And now, that whole thing of dressing up like her as a lieutenant colonel or whatever the hell she was doing and challenging that TSA agent, there's no records of her serving. And it's just a BS story, and she hocked a flight on the honor flight, and I don't know how many times they push these foreign. I'm not going to get down on honor flight by any means, but there's articles that come out of these Navy SEALs. They're going to they push that to the media, and I look in, I check the name, and they're not listed. They're not legit, and they snagged a flight, stole that from a legit vet. And this is where it's not harmless. I don't go after harmless loudmouths. Sometimes I do if I know there's a good bullshit story that they're going to tell me about their buds class or, their team assignments in Vietnam, but usually not. It's the ones that profit from it, the guys that really get me going. And when you steal a flight like that from a vet, or you steal a job from a legit vet with a fake DD-214 resume, it upsets me.
Oh, absolutely. Like that kind of reminds me of the guy that guy James Kimo Akaka that said that he was a Navy SEAL, and they took him on a flight to the beaches of Normandy. And I remember like how that offended you because I remember like in that video, Diane shared about how her dad stormed the beaches of Normandy and that had a very, very close relationship with her father, and that's why that should be offensive to anybody actually, because that's just more than offensive right there. Somebody that actually was able to get on that flight because they said that they were a Navy SEAL, and they never were. They were an underperforming sailor, and they should have just left it at that. But it's just I know the chemo you're talking about. And guys do this for a few reasons. They impersonate, whether in the Army or the Marines, they do that for a few reasons. I don't know that was honor flight that took them over there. Perhaps could have been. But chemo was in it because he was wheelchair bound. He didn't have anything. So what's he going to come up with? He was a gifted swimmer in that paraplegic game type of thing. He's going to come up with this BS story about being a Navy SEAL. While you look at being disabled, and he's in a wheelchair, and the guy's really screwed up. He did that to himself through drugs and alcohol. But he is profiting from that now because he has nothing. And he needs you to give him something to get going. And that's where a lot of these guys go. Now, there's a lot of guys out there that don't need to stoop to that level. They're down and out. They're having a hard time making a living, feeding their families, but they don't do it. And there's a group of guys that will. They will come out and come out swinging of why you need to give me money, and they line up at these veterans charities. It's such strange things that they do to profit from that, and they work it out the first time, and they get better at it. It's like anything you do in life. No matter what you do, you get better at it as you go through your Army career, from a private to wherever you are now. You get really good at it, and these guys get good at it, and that becomes how they feed themselves. And it's wrong, but it's also understandable. The guy's got to eat if you really look at it that way. This guy is doing this to put food on his table and stuff, and terribly wrong, and I will go after him and sink my hooks in him. But that's where a lot of the fake Navy SEALs come in. They do it for respect they didn't earn. If you look at me pulling their records, 97% of the records that I pull, and I can pull them in a couple of hours, they had crap service. They never made it out of boot camp. Their final duty station was at Brig at Miramar. They were dishonorably discharged after a hitch in Fort Leavenworth, or they're doing it to intimidate you. I can kill you with a rolled-up newspaper. They're the town bully. They bully women, bully children, and it's just terrible guys. Or they're doing it to build trust. I'm going to roof your house. I'm going to pave your driveway because I was a Navy SEAL Vietnam vet, and I need all the money up front, and you're never going to see him. I just busted that clown, the chimney sweep guy in Boston. I saw that video.
And, yeah, they caught him. That guy caught him putting a dead bird in his chimney and charging him to remove it. Ugh. And he just went on about this guy's 10-minute spiel about himself being a Navy SEAL and a firefighter and paramedic And then, he's all over rip-off reports of doing something like that. But that is a classic example, that clown up there, of doing that, and then I struggle to think about that. Okay, I found a dead bird on the side of the road, and I'm going to put that in my trunk, and I'm going to take it to my next job, and I'm going to stick it in the chimney and tell you there's a dead bird up there. I need to charge you more to remove it. And that's exactly what these clowns do. So.
It's crap behavior. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we've already reached the bottom of the hour. We're going to take about a 3.5 minute break. Go ahead and top off your beverages, or you go use the bathroom if you need be. We'll be back in about 3.5 minutes. So.
Are we good?
Yeah, we got to hold off on the convo.
Okay. I'll be right back.
All right.
Walter Cronkite once said, "In seeking the truth, you have to get both sides of the story." Coming to you live from the impact area of information and the destination of deliberate discussion. Welcome to Depth of Perspective, where the truth has no bias. With your host, Alex Kirsch. Information is our weapon, and we aim it on the azimuth of fire towards a better future for our country. Prepare yourselves for the arrival.
Come and join Unleashed Nation, 5 p.m. Eastern, on Spreaker, iHeart, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and any place of premium podcasts are broadcast. Yes, folks, real apolitical talk, the only show like it in the world. Come and join us over at UJHLive.com. That's UJHLive.com. And join our Unleashed exclusive club. We love everybody, folks. Pro-America, that means pro-me and you. That's what we talk about. We're not Republican. We're not Democrat. We're Americans. And I want to be called one. I love you guys. Remember, Unleashed Nation, 5 p.m. Eastern. See you there.
Tune in each weeknight for a unique point of view that's unapologetically politically incorrect. Because life isn't about left or right, it's about right and wrong. The Jack Alexander Experiment streams live Monday to Friday nights from 7 p.m. Eastern on Facebook and YouTube. Can't get enough? Check out the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast wherever good podcasts can be found.
Did you know that 22 veterans a day take their own life? Did you know that 40 million people suffer from anxiety in the U.S.? I refuse to stand back. I believe that some of our biggest challenges as humans are internal. Anxiety, depression, PTSD. Join myself, Zach K., every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Cerebral Connection.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully everybody had a good break real quick. Hopefully everybody re-topped off those beverages. So once again, we are online with Don Shipley, retired Navy SEAL, and we just got in the first part of the show. We talked about the origins of Phony Navy SEAL of the Week. And next we're going to kind of go into like a little bit stories here and there. We're probably going to share some of our military experiences here and there. But hopefully everybody's enjoying the show so far. So you having a good time right now, Don?
I'm having a great time.
Fantastic. Awesome. So if I you've probably got all kinds of military experiences right there, but is there one that kind of just sticks out in your mind that's like the most memorable? I mean, it could be a good or a bad one. I mean, let's just say with the most positive one right there.
The most positive military experience I had, would be my retirement. And certainly I owe all that to the U.S. Navy. I was a 17-year-old punk and got out of boot camp, found myself on a ship in Yokosuka, Japan, and I sailed the 7 seas and in tattoo parlors in Hong Kong, getting all inked up as just a guy that didn't shave but once a week, to retiring as a SEAL senior chief. The coolest thing about the military, and it's unfortunate that so few actually serve if they ever knew, but the military will give you every opportunity, allow you to take on any responsibility and anything that you want to do. And they take, it's a cool thing about the Navy, the Seaman to Admiral program. Things like that, your college, everything is important to them, your health, your dental, everything to keep you good to go and moving forward. That's just move forward. So retiring after all that time, I think if you went to SEAL Team 2 today, you could still see the claw marks from my fingernails as I was dragged across the quarterdeck into retirement. But I had a gig with Blackwater, and I was getting too old for the 9/11 thing when it went on. I retired in January 2003 after 9/11, and to get back into another SEAL platoon, to go through all the workups, to deploy over there wasn't happening. But Blackwater would give me a gun. And it just, everything in the Navy just opened up all these doors for me. So, yeah.
Yeah,
retirement.
It's funny when you brought up 9/11 because that was actually my 4th day of basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Like, I thought the drill sergeants were messing with us. I thought it was just a game, actually. I thought they were just, it was just to kind of psych us out or something. But, then they showed us newspapers and, we rode on a bus back from the location where they were showing us we were learning basic training in AIT. But once we started seeing the pictures and of everything that took place, like, it was like, oh, shit. We're going to war. And I'm not going to lie, I actually thought about getting out of the Army. I thought I made a huge mistake, but, I'm glad I stuck it out because, here I am, 4 trips to Iraq and 1 to Afghanistan, it's just, it's made me a better person. It's definitely made me a much more worldly person to this day. And that's definitely the one that I can take away from the Army, and just, I tell everybody, though, I have to say, like, the apex of my career is when I was platoon sergeant, which, is you're in charge of your own platoon. I mean, to me, there's nothing that can really top that right there. I had a great time. I had platoon leaders that I could work with. I had 3 platoon leaders when I was a platoon sergeant, not because they got it was their time to change out. And I had a great relationship with them. I had great section chiefs that ran their howitzer sections well. It was fun. I had a great time. I mean, it was just like every day I went to work was like the best day of my life right there.
Well, I built my reputation up in demolitions, and SEALs specialize in every doggone area. Demolitions. I have blown up dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds of tons of explosives into these massive, I just love blowing stuff up. And I was teaching a demolition course at our Desert Training Center in Niland, California. And I got up in the morning before all the guys did, having my coffee, flipped on the TV, and there that plane had hit the World Trade Center. So we got all the guys up, got them chow. I pulled them all into the classroom, and those guys were Buds Class 2, 3, 4.
Discovery Channel.
Is the first Buds class they ever let. Now, they cut a lot of stuff out where you're not going to see this, and you can't look at Buds Class 2, 3, 4 and think that is Buds in its entirety, because they cut out a lot of stuff where the Garden Club ladies would not go, why are those guys all naked and piled in a boat together? It's just how SEAL training works, and, just the pointy end of the spear stuff. But Class 2, 3, 4, I taught all those clowns demolitions out at Nyland, and I pulled them all in a classroom. And I told them, where my time in the Navy had been mostly a peacetime Navy, you guys, through your career, are never going to see a day of peace, and I'll be doggone if it didn't come true. All those years later, all those guys, all that fighting that went on, and I said, there's nothing we can do. And I loaded them up in a 6x to go out and blow up the desert out there, and yelled when we went out of the compound. I told one of those kids to get out of the back of the 6x and lower that flag to half mast. And they've all gone on to some great things. I still hang out and convey with those. And Justin Legg has been down here at my property hunting before. I get him down here again, and Justin had it was kind of a highlight in that class. And Justin had his lungs transplanted after
Really?
the gassing thing that he had. He's an amazing guy. What a rock star. Naval Academy graduate. He did 50 pull-ups for his SEAL PST test, and he survived that double lung transplant and is still kicking. So
That's just incredible. That is just incredible because, I got 3 bulging discs in my lower back, and there are some days where I wake up in bed, I just feel like I'm in, the worst pain possible. But, the doctors tell me it's not bad enough for them to operate on it, so I just got to suck it up. I'm like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But, I got a guy that's on my team right now. He was in a car accident in February, and, the car that smashed into him was going, 90 miles per hour, and, they put so much hardware into his body, and they say he flatlined 3 times on his way to the hospital. And he's out there just killing it, just still doing great physical fitness-wise, but he's probably going to get medically discharged from the Army. And he's just going strong, but he's just so headstrong in it. And here I am just being a little bit of a pansy. But it's just I have days when the weather changes, my back is killing me. And there's I feel like such a wuss at times, it's just, but the thing is, though, is everybody reacts differently to it, honestly. And I have no shame in admitting to it, but I just say as I feel kind of like a pansy, as I say.
Yeah, you see some of these guys coming back, and I'm running this charity down here. We've left Extreme SEAL Experience after 10 extraordinarily great seasons from guys coming from all. I was so flattered, running that SEAL training program for 2 weeks that guys came from Japan, China, all over Europe. There's not a country that we didn't have. Flattered that they would travel all the way to Virginia for that. And after 10 seasons, I pushed enough guys off that top of that rappel tower. And Diane and I retired once again and started Extreme SEAL Adventures. And the video website had always been up because I sensed trouble with YouTube. I was way too gritty for YouTube with some of the things I was doing with these clowns. But Extreme SEAL Adventures, and that's where we are. We're in Cambridge, Maryland. We run this kick-ass charity up here. Bring the wounded guys down. There's a huge waterfront farm property. And take the kids with cancer and the wounded guys and just out goose, duck, turkey, deer hunting, and we're doing well. I got a smile on my face all the time. I just plant my crops and let the birds do the rest of it and take them out. So I got a wonderful, Maryland has just wonderful hunting opportunities, and my favorite, I've taken the wives out, the widows out, the disabled guys, but nothing compares to the youth hunt. And November 2nd, I'm taking 4 little boys out. And so their dads are there because that's all you're doing is swatting gun barrels out of the way as these ducks come in. It's exciting, and those little boys get their first ducks. And yeah, I love it, man.
That's awesome. I love hearing because, my wife, she does Horses and Warriors, and they don't have as many people as they would like to come up because she does where she works up at. She's a therapeutic rider instructor. And she'll have veterans that'll come up that are, just to go riding on horses. And, horses just have that connection. And it seems like they can almost understand what that veteran is feeling. And I've seen the impact that, horses have on veterans because, sometimes there's so many guys, like our fellow brothers and sisters, doesn't matter what branch it is, they come back and they have very, very little hope, honestly. And it's just programs like yours and programs like Horses and Warriors or whatever it is, it kind of gives them that purpose in life, because far too often I see some of my buddies get out of the military and they feel like they have no more purpose in life. And unfortunately, I've had quite a few friends commit suicide because of it, because they just feel like they have nothing left after the military. And it's so sad and it's unfortunate. It breaks my heart every single time. So I love hearing that you're doing that for people, because we need that. People need that. They need that purpose right there.
Well, I hunt over here. When you hunt with these old school waterfowlers, and that's what this place is, the waterfowl hunting capital of the world here. And one of my favorites is a former state senator who's 87 years old. And when he invites you, he doesn't invite me. He tells me, you're hunting with me. You're hunting with me on Wednesday. And when he says that, as everyone does down here, you've learned that you're hunting on Wednesday. You're hunting from sunrise to sunset unless you get your limit of birds. You are staying in that blind, and it's dedicated. It's demanding. It's cold out there, but you're not getting out. And I took my first 2 wounded guys out. And one of them, they were 2 Marines, and one of them was Larry Drawn. And Larry, as a young guy, had lost both his legs in Afghanistan, and he's quite infamous on the internet. And the young guys were shooting the breeze in the front of the blind, and the senator and I were sitting in the back, and the senator was overhearing this. And had that old 87-year-old guy stood straight up, and he goes, "Are you the guy that told Obama to F himself?" And he said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he came around that blind. He goes, "I got to hear this story firsthand. I can't believe you're that guy." And Larry had lost both legs in Afghanistan, Iraq, Afghanistan. Sorry, I'm losing that. He is 19 years old, laying in a hospital bed there without any legs, and he is going home the next morning. And the press secretary from the White House contacts him and says, President Obama wants to give his first Purple Heart to you. And he's like, "Well, that's great." They're on the phone. And he said, "It'll be next Wednesday." And he said, "No, I'm going home tomorrow." And he said, "No, it'll be next Wednesday. You have to stay for the president." And he goes, I'm going home tomorrow."
Oh.
And he said, "It'll be next Wednesday." And he said, "You tell President Obama to go himself." And in the other end of the phone on the speaker, he said, "What the hell?" It was the president. He was listening in on that conversation. He said, "I'll take my Purple Heart from the Commandant of the Marine Corps and the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. I'm not staying here another day. I'm going home." And so the senator got a big kick out of that. And that's the guys that we're putting out there today. And Larry has gone on to some incredible things on those prosthetics. Rob Jones has been down here before. Rob Jones is running for office, and he is just one solid guy in North Carolina. Rob ran without legs. Rob ran 31 marathons. These are full 26-mile marathons. Get this shit. 31 marathons in 31 cities in 31 days.
Wow.
You search Rob on those things, and he was down here goose hunting with me, and it was really cold. And I asked Rob, I said, "How you doing?" He goes, "Man, my legs are getting cold." And I was like, "Rob, how are your legs getting cold?" And he goes, "It's the prosthetics. There's no insulation in them. So, his thighs were getting cold from those prosthetics." And we shot a lot of geese and had a great laugh. And he's a great guy and a beautiful wife. And they both are in the Paralympics. And it's great to have these guys down here. And I got a good banged up Dev Group SEAL coming down with his 2 little boys and to do that waterfowl hunt. And I just love it. I just love being around, and the military, I'm giving back.
That's awesome. I mean, I think I'm going to have to convince Claire for us to make a trip up to Maryland and pay you guys a visit or something. I mean, that sounds like that would be a great time, actually. I mean, just, I'm not much of a hunter, I'll be perfectly honest, but, I just like stuff like that because, recently I was actually got to work backstage security for Gary Sinise because he had a concert over here at Fort Benning, and it was pretty cool to see him just because it's just a free show, and he has the best time ever because he likes to show his support for people that have served their country, and he likes to give back as well. I mean, he gives back. I mean, there's a lot of celebrities out there that give back, and I just can't thank them enough. And I love seeing that you're doing the same thing as well, and that's kind of why I want to kind of go into the field of being a therapist, because I feel like I can actually make that connection with people who've served their country because, far too often I see people that don't want to share their experiences with people because they can't really relate to them, and I'm hoping that maybe I can, break that barrier a little bit. They can understand that we're on common ground, you know what I'm saying?
Well, Gary is a very gifted guy, the captain in Forrest Gump, and he's been taken advantage of before. I outed a terrible phony SEAL that latched onto him in a wheelchair. The guy gets out, walks around his vehicle at Burger King, and then gets in a wheelchair and goes into that foundation. Don't even get me started with these guys. Gary does a fantastic job, but when you look at these charities, as yours, I would tell all of them to be very careful and check. And I get on these charities all the time of why would you have given that guy a vehicle? Why would you have given him a service dog? And the answer is, why wouldn't you have checked? And the answer is always, we didn't want to offend him. And I was like, well, you should have, because he's never served a day in the military. He's never been in Iraq. He's a fake Navy SEAL. And then they just want to sweep it under the rug. We built houses for these guys, country music stars that never served in the military, and they exploit. One of my worst ones, he still pops up. I went after him. Some Texas businessmen flew a private jet to North Carolina to get this guy and fly him to Texas, that he'd been shot 27 times as a Navy SEAL. Well, I know that SEAL. I've invited him up here, and that's not the same guy. And that dude killed everything in the state of Texas with a heartbeat while he was down there. They lavished that guy and just, I guess, let him do it because he was a SEAL with PTSD, and he was nothing but he just killed stuff. And not only did they do it once, they did it twice. Brought him back down, and he violated every game law in the state of Texas as a fake SEAL, and he's in hiding in Alaska now, but I know where that clown is. But this is how they infiltrate these charities. They get these elk hunts, fly fishing trips. They are terrible. And one of my favorite, I've been pushing guys off the rappel tower at Extreme SEAL Experience, and it had been a long, hot day. And I came back with all the guys, and Diane ran out with my cell phone. She said, "It's Jay Leno. It's Jay Leno on the line." And it was like, holy crap. Well, everybody knows Jay Leno has all these automobiles, this collection. And his mechanic contacted me. And Jay Leno is just like Gary Sinise. Jay Leno is he's a very generous guy to the military. He's the Bob Hope of our era. And Jay had been palling around with two guys that claimed to have been Navy SEALs and lavishing them. I verified both of them were phonies. And next thing I know, Jay's on the phone. He was just wrapping up the Tonight Show, his career, and he said, "I really want to get you on the Tonight Show." He said, "But it's got to go through the production guy, the manager, or the producer." That's what it was. And he said, "The producer's going to call you in a couple of days." And he said, "Come up with your best funny stories, because this is dark humor, and we're a comedy show. You got to come up with something good." That doggone producer, Jay Leno's, called me back about 30 minutes later after I'd been out in that heat. I really couldn't come up with anything funny. It's just there's none of it's funny dealing with these guys. So I didn't make the cut, but I'm glad to help Gary and Jay and all these charities and stuff. And Yeah, check. Trust but verify, right? Isn't that what Ronald Reagan said?
Oh, absolutely. You should always trust but verify, because, you know, the one thing you don't want is to get taken advantage of, but you see it far too often where people will be, if you mix enough bullshit into the truth or enough truth into the bullshit, you'll get anybody to believe anything. We see it all the time. We see people that will just embellish just enough just to make it sound just good enough. And, you know, it's just that the charisma that some people might have. It's like, this person couldn't possibly lie to me. I mean, why would this person lie to me? It's just, you know, it's just, but again, it's good that, you know, we're talking about this, and it's great that you're still doing it, even though I know it's frustrating at times to, you know, deal with this, because you say you deal with like 15 to 20 phonies a day, right?
No, sometimes more than that. I don't know how many I've verified today. It fluctuates, but it's always constant there, around that dozen to 15 to 20 mark.
Yeah.
And it's just people that want to know. You know, my brother-in-law claims to be a SEAL, and he's a moron, and he beats me all. You know, it's just weird stuff that they do, down to the out and outright absolute despicable pedophiles, murderers, rapists. Everybody in prison's a Navy SEAL. I don't know how many calls I get from jailers that you know, just are curious to know, this guy's in here with a big SEAL tattoo on him, and why not? Because you don't want trouble with the other inmates. I've verified at least 4 hostage standoffs for the FBI. They'll call me and go, because you would think the FBI and law enforcement can access, you know, these SEAL records, and they cannot. This is a SEAL database. It's not a classified thing, but it is sensitive, and it was done by SEALs in the spec war community, and we maintain that. So you can pull a guy's military records and take that time, or you can contact me. And they're in the middle of this standoff, and they contact me, and you know, no, he's not a Navy SEAL in there that the neighbors have said, and they have to take extra precautions. And one of my more flattering ones came from a woman who was in a horrible relationship, and she said, I'm on Admiral McRaven's staff. Admiral McRaven, the bin Laden guy, Admiral McRaven orchestrated the whole bin Laden raid. And she said, Admiral McRaven said to contact you to save her from the red tape of going through Navy bureaucracy. Contact that old SEAL Shipley, and he'll tell you if that guy was ever a SEAL. So, you know, it works. And the police, God bless them, and everyone else, you know, I'll do what I can to my last breath. I'm never going to stop with these clowns. So.
Well, I should hope not. So before we wrap things up, you know, what I usually like to do is like to give, like, you know, final thoughts. And once you give your final thoughts, please let everybody know where they can find you, and if they need a claim verified to somebody being a phony SEAL, what advice can you give them? So go ahead and shoot.
Well, if you need a phony SEAL claim, you can go to Extreme SEAL Experience. The website Extreme SEAL Experience is up there, but I haven't done anything with it since I ran all those guys through training. But you can get the fake SEAL claim done there, or just Googling fake Navy SEAL verifications, and you'll see some links. And since YouTube burned me after, you know, 50 million views over that Nathan Phillips guy claiming to be a SEAL, you can look at former Buds 131. That was my channel, Buds 131, my SEAL training class. But former Buds 131 is up on YouTube. But I only put kind of teaser videos up there because YouTube just really, you know, I don't have much bad to say about it, but they can be harsh. You never know what they're going to do. But my video website is videos.extremesealexperience.com, and I said, you know, for the price of a 6-pack of Blatz, you can see all the guys that I go after and all kinds of things with the charity, and or searching Don Shipley videos, you find that as well. And Extreme SEAL Adventures is the charity that we host down here. You get a really good look at the property, Extreme SEAL Adventures, and what we do with the kids down here and the wounded guys. And it's just a great time, man. We do a good job. I appreciate it, Alex. Thank you, bro. Thank you much.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on the show because, you know, I've been following you for so long, just watching the videos, because, like, I would look forward to the next bust that you do. So, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had a chance to go to the website, I mean, you got to go check it out. I mean, it's, you know, subscribe for a month or something like that just to give it a shout or just to give it a check, because the stuff on there is great, but you learn so much from it. I mean, because he's not just busting phony SEALs. He's talking about the things that he does also, him and his wife Diane, because, you know, Diane was in the Navy as well, so she's a veteran too. So this is something very, very near and dear to their hearts. And this should be near and dear to all of our hearts because, you know, people like Don and people like, you know, his family and the people he served with, they are pretty much a reflection of what makes us a great country and everything about it too. And, you know, I tend not to hold myself in the limelight, but it's just, you know, all of us that serve, we do it because we love our country. And I think it's important that, you know, people like Don are out there exposing those that would actually steal that because they didn't earn it. They didn't go through the pains and the process to go through it. I mean, granted, I mean, I've had a pretty good experience, but I've gone through the deployments. I've seen horrible things as well, and I know Don has as well. And for somebody to go through and steal that valor, I mean, I've known too many friends that have committed suicide, too many people, and I've been to too many memorial services, and I know Don and Diane have as well. And it's painful. That's why it's so important for us to expose those that would steal that valor. They have no business doing so. So if you see something, if you see somebody making that claim, and if they seem like they're full of it, you know, just do your due diligence. And if they say, hey, I was a Navy SEAL or something like that, go to Don's website, send him an email, you know, and then just let him know, it's like, hey, I got a claim right here. And then they'll walk you through the process and go from there. So once again, Don, I can't thank you enough for being a guest on my show. I mean, it really means a lot to me. I'm completely honored, and I'm, you know, hopefully this is the start of a friendship right here.
Well, I tell everybody to get ready for Veterans Day. It is Christmas for phonies. And get your cameras out at those Veterans Day parades. That's really where they come out swinging. And they all impersonate Navy SEALs, but in these parades, they change. They love Marine Corps dress blues like nothing else. And they'll all be out there in those, they switch heads. So thanks everybody. Thanks, Alex. Really well done, man. Do a good job, and I hope retirement does really well for you.
Absolutely. So anyway, thank you all again. Don, I'll talk to you real quick once the show is closed out. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And we are rounds complete.